Okay, so I'm going to start with the secret, which is that the key to success is selection and maintenance of the aim. Now in the army, this is called the master principle of war. So it's the single most important thing that you can do. And when you look at it, you say, well, it's just choosing what you're going to do and then sticking to it. But within that secret is a whole lot of pain, because it's not as easy as it sounds. Now I'm going to give you some examples from historical combat to see if we can understand what selection and maintenance of the aim actually is. And I'm going to begin with Vietnam. So in Vietnam, the Americans' aim was to stop the spread of communism in the Far East by defeating the Viet Cong. And everybody knows that it was a big defeat for the Americans. But what is less well known is that they won every single major battle in Vietnam, which may be something of a surprise, I don't know. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that because it's not a simple case of a conventional war space. But nevertheless, whenever they had a major battle, they won every single one. And if you look at the relative casualties taken, the Americans lost about 60,000 casualties. But their enemy, the Viet Cong, lost between 300,000 and 1 million casualties. They lost so many people, they don't even know how many they lost, to the nearest 100,000. And yet, we see it, quite rightly, as being an American defeat. So this is about maintaining your aim. Even though the Americans did very well militarily, at the final campaign, which we call the Tet Offensive, that was a huge military defeat for the Viet Cong. They lost about 11,000 casualties just on that one attack, which is huge. And yet that was the point when the Americans in the White House realized that they weren't going to win the war easily. And it was at that point they said, you know what, we haven't got the will to continue anymore. Now you might say that's fair enough, you lost 60,000 people. But in pure military terms, they were actually doing quite well. So this is failure to maintain the aim. Let's look at an example a little bit closer to home, which is that of Northern Ireland. Now when the British troops went into Northern Ireland, they did so to support the police in upholding law and order. And not many people know this, but when the British Army first went into Belfast, they were cheered by the Catholic crowds. You heard that right, by the Catholic crowds, because they felt that they'd come to protect them from persecution by the Protestant majority. Now obviously, something went kind of wrong over the years there, because they went from cheering the British soldiers to throwing petrol bombs at them. Now here you've got a clear case where the British Army went off maintaining its aim and got too caught up in the idea of defeating the IRA, which it was not its aim to do. And arguably, the British Army got back to its aim of supporting the police, and eventually it was the IRA that couldn't maintain their aim, and they put down their weapons. So it was the British Army in the end, over a long, long period of time, that did okay. But just to give you some concept of how long it can take. On the right-hand side there, you've got a member of my battalion, Fusiliers, in Northern Ireland in 1980, along with his little mate, who I rather like, because it looks like he's got his own little rifle made out of a bit of wood, which is quite cool. And on the other side, we've got me there in 2003, when I was about 12, I think, looking at that photo. It can take decades to maintain an aim properly. Right, let's leave that to one side for a second. Let's leave the combat to one side and let's say, what is the aim of a bookshop? What is the aim of a bookshop? Selection and maintenance of the aim, what is the aim of a bookshop? Okay, it's a bit of a trick question I've done there, because it isn't to sell books. The aim of a bookshop is like any other business, which is to make profit. But it may be that the thing that they've chosen to make profit at is to sell books. However, I've worked with quite a few bookshops over the years, and some of them make more money from the cafe that's in the bookshop than they do from selling books. And that's fine, as long as they're making profit. If you switch it over the other way, and you say, well, we sell lots of books, but we ain't making any profit, then we've got a real problem, haven't we? I've got some friends in investment equity, and they have this little saying that sales are vanity, but profit is reality.